The following I will read here is from an interview from Gaia that can be found at the Uman TV channel entitled, "Why Do You Think the Earth Attracts So Many ETs?" This is a transcription from a segment of interest from that clip, after which I will comment concerning it. Randy Kramer speaking to Emery Smith on Gaia in 2021. Clip on Uman TV. Randy Kramer, Mars Marine 17 years, is speaking with fellow secret space personnel Emery Smith, now working with Gaia. The clip I cut out for this examination starts out with Randy Kramer saying, "I actually met raptors, the subterranean reptoids of planet Earth. They are from here, they developed here, they evolved here, and they have been living underground for a very, very long time." Then Randy goes on to explain. So a reptoid is a term to describe any species of a reptilian origin. When we talk about raptors, we are talking about a specific terrestrial species that has evolved from dinosaurs and essentially went subterranean a very, very long time ago. So they tend to have longer, thinner legs. They tend to have a long, curved neck with a longer snout. I would not go so far as to say they are friendly, but I would go so far as to say they are not hostile. But people are given general warnings not to wander into their territory, because you might end up food if you run into the wrong group of people. We definitely have an interactive relationship with them and a participating, cooperative relationship in bringing balance to the surface. So their main concern is, as we imbalance what is happening on the surface, that threatens the planet as a whole. Now, their subterranean civilizations will survive regardless, but they have an interest in whether or not the surface world is healthy or not. The worse it gets, the more they have to kind of say, you know, you just can't destroy life on the surface. You need to fix that, or we'll take some action to fix it if you don't. Emery Smith says, who is receiving that intel? So the extraterrestrials know this is going on, and the extraterrestrials that are on the surface know this is going on. Some of them may be in a position of leadership that can maybe express this. Randy Kramer replies, yeah, I mean, they certainly have a social, political structure, and so their leadership communicates with our leadership, and they cooperate for mutual gain and mutual benefit for the planet and for both species as a whole. Emery Smith says, and that's how you got down to Inner Earth? Randy Kramer replies, absolutely. Emery Smith says, and why were you in Inner Earth? Randy Kramer replies, I had to sign some paperwork and swear an oath in front of a judge. Emery says, and were there extraterrestrials there that you witnessed? Randy replies, it was a raptor judge, so basically it was terrestrial personnel, armed services who escorted me there, who waited outside the courtroom, which nobody was in. But when it was ready, when it was time, I stood in front of him. And he asked me some questions, made me raise my hand and swear, signed some papers, got a thumbprint, and I was on my way. Emery says, was that to get more access to other places in the galaxy? Or, Randy replies, it was to grant me authority under their legal system, which is global. So it actually is able to extend my legal authority beyond our own federal system into a global legal network. Emery says, tell me more about the raptors and their legal authority. Randy says, well, they've been here longer than we have, so their legal authority is a bit bigger and a bit broader. So in order to have a larger authority for an investigative powers that they wanted to give me, it was important to essentially go through that process for me to swear, promise, sign, thumbprint, so I was sanctioned under their legal authority, under their legal umbrella, which was bigger than the legal umbrella my people were able to give me clearance for. So it was an extra clearance, extra authority given to me by them. That concludes the clip of which I am referring to for this comment. And now comments about that conversation clip. So addressing this information, I would first address what Randy Kramer says about the raptor reptilians, in which he says, quote, "I actually met raptors, the subterranean reptoids of planet Earth. They are from here, they developed here, they evolved here, and they have been living underground for a very, very long time." Many Christians would dismiss this information as deception about evolution. But just because Randy Kramer is a secret space program insider does not mean he understands everything about how life forms truly began. And he is likely in any case repeating the information he was given. If you think about it, given as we humans also do not have any hard proof records of where we originated from, likely other species do not either, and may be under general deception just like humans, that they evolved from animals. I have reverse speech tested Randy Kramer extensively, and while this is not a definitive test of trustworthiness, he came out clean so far. In my opinion, he is telling the truth, and also is not deceived by false memories. Next, Randy says, "People are given general warnings not to wander into their territory because you might end up food if you run into the wrong group of people." There is understandable disbelief in something like reptilians that live here in the earth with us that eat humans regularly. But God's word, besides many witnesses, confirm this. Fact: God said Adam was made of the dust. Fact: God told the serpent, "Dust shall you eat all the days of your life." Next, referring to what Randy Kramer says, quote, "It was a raptor judge. He asked me some questions, made me raise my hand and swear, signed some papers, got a thumbprint, and I was on my way." End quote. This itself does not prove reptilian dominance, but the fact you have a human raising his hand and swearing to a reptilian judge tells us that at least some humans are subject to reptilian law. In my experience of targeting from uploading reptilian exposure movies and realizing there was this entire hidden subculture of non-humans, I realized these reptilians must also have their own law, separate from human law. And in this clip of Randy Kramer, we can see clearly that in fact is the case. Randy goes on to detail that he knew the reptilian law was older and more broad than human law, clearly indicating superiority. Notice that means military superiority, and likely to the extent that humans who are aware of the reptilians are strongly compelled not to mention their existence, or else we might have heard of them by now from some president or other governmental figure. This begs the question, what is it that compels them to keep this rather huge news from the American people? What keeps all the world's governments in line with keeping the existence not just of reptilians, but of all extraterrestrials and even giants completely silent? There is no replacement for overwhelming, superior military force. If the reptilians did not have overwhelming, superior military force, combined with readily usable mind and memory control, it is likely some president or someone high-ranking would have put together a resistance capable of holding its own and releasing the information to the public. The only other thing that could cause all the people that know about the serpents to not talk about it would be an order from God, which I think is less likely. Notice nowhere in the scripture does it say we should not expose the serpents, but rather it says, Luke 10:19, "Behold, I give unto you power to tread on serpents and scorpions, and over all the power of the enemy, and nothing shall by any means hurt you." Consider this means that most American presidents either knew about it and were motivated to not talk about it, or they and everyone around them were mind and memory controlled to the extent that the entire show rolls on, and no one knows reptilian law is superior to human law, and this means the reptilians control humanity. Next, Randy says, quote, "It was to grant me authority under their legal system, which is global. So it actually is able to extend my legal authority beyond our own federal system into a global legal network." End quote. So here's the detail showing us that reptilian law, and thus rule, is not just over America, but the world, because he says the raptor reptilian law is global. Now, it can indeed be believed that humans are working with reptilians, the way any different races work together. But consider the degree of secrecy required to make sure no one will go to the news media with their existence, rather a big story. Consider the control that must be over the news media to make sure no one slips in who has seen a reptilian and managed to get a story out. It must be a massive operation of complete control over government, media, social media, military, law enforcement, and all major business, just to keep the existence of reptilians a secret. I have a clip of self-proclaimed reptilian insectoid hybrid Simon Parkes talking about an interview show he did for a British media company, in which, for telling his story, he wanted to show a picture of an insectoid with a reptilian. However, the authorities of the network came in and told them that the picture of the insectoid could be used, but not the picture of the reptilian. So in order to make the show for British consumption, they had to cut out the picture of the reptilian. The way it was described, the authority at the news network seemed to be going by established law, which law is that no picture of reptilians may be used in a news story. The fact that the reptilians have a law that any resemblance of a reptilian cannot be used in a news or television broadcast alone means that the news and information we get from television is under their control. Who knows what other information they don't allow? Is it legal by American law and the American Constitution that a non-declared group, nation, or entity have superiority over Americans? Is it legal under the U.S. Constitution that a foreign, undeclared power have authority over members of the American Armed Forces? Is it legal under the Constitution of the United States of America that a foreign power or entity have the ability to bind a member of the armed forces of the United States without Congress and the American people being informed and consenting? I dare suggest that laws from a foreign power, especially non-humans, are illegal to be imposed or enforced on any American, as there are no provisions for this in the Constitution or any law which such a law must be made publicly available to the American people. Therefore, any member of the American government, from the President to all members of Congress, who are aware of this foreign power, either having influence or imposing regulation which affects the American people, and has not disclosed this information publicly, is a traitor to the United States of America, and each one having been found knowing that a foreign power has direct influence over American government and policy must be tried for treason. Consider the implications here that a foreign power, even a non-human entity, has authority to cause a member of the armed forces of the United States to obey their foreign and unknown dictates. Consider the amount of unknown information, policies, and history of action by this foreign power, the raptor reptilians in this case, as they have affected government policy of the United States. The fact that these non-humans even exist, with knowledge of anyone as a public representative elected by the people, represents an act of treason against the entirety of the American people. Any person of the armed forces of the United States of America whose salary is thus paid for by the American taxpayer, and who knowingly serves an undeclared, unregulated, and entirely unknown foreign power, especially non-humans, is at the very least in question for obeying orders known to have been a directive from an undeclared foreign power, and is also obligated as a matter of righteousness as a fellow American citizen, even at the risk of death or worse, to inform his chain of command as well as publish as widely as possible to his fellow Americans that America now or ever has been under the laws of a foreign power. The Constitution and American law are clearly against the influence and certainly regulation by a foreign power to affect anything as it pertains to Americans, and the American people should demand an immediate review of this situation by their elected representatives, with a full investigative body overseen by a publicly elected and declared independent body of evidence gatherers, and a full report be made and a decision rendered. Randy Kramer has stated clearly that he is a legal member of the Armed Forces of the United States of America, the Marines, and has served as a Marine on the planet Mars for 17 years, and has interacted with several species of non-humans, all of which has been denied general knowledge by the American people, and yet has been paid for by the taxes of the American people. This and many other operations costing in the trillions of dollars up to this point has gone on illegally and against the Constitution of the United States for at least 50 years, if not longer. Furthermore, there is additional information from other sources to suggest that American foreign policy, energy policy, immigration policy, and other areas of American government operation are influenced, if not outright controlled, by hidden, secret, unknown, undeclared, and therefore illegal foreign entities, which by law should have no influence on American governmental policy, actions, or programs. The American people should consider: we have someone or something, a foreign power, a non-human power, which keeps itself hidden, and yet has global laws which supersede human governments and law worldwide. Further, the American people should consider there is evidence from enough sources to conclude a likelihood that technologically advanced mind control, including memory control with erasure of real memories and adding of false memories, is deployed currently, which explains partly how these non-humans, reptilians, and others are able to keep both their existence a secret and control humans without their knowledge to enact their agenda. I can attest to personally that I was able to determine that mind-reading technology is being used, as this was used as an aspect of targeting or gang stalking, psychological warfare used against me for uploading social media information and evidence regarding these non-humans, primarily reptilians. It has come to my attention that in fact, according to reptilian law, it is legal to kill any human who discovers the existence of reptilians unless they are protected. And by protected, I mean specifically by God, which I discovered in several assassination attempts made against me, in which the would-be assassins were met with death. This means likely the secret existence and control of the United States government by these non-human reptilian beings is maintained with murdering United States citizens, including government officials and members of the armed services. It is likely that the untimely deaths of many such government and military officials has been as a direct result of them being considered a threat to the secret existence and control of reptilians. A question I would put to every man listening to this, and who realizes the evidence is now clear what is going on: are we as men going to take a world where reptiles tell us what we can do and what we can say? Are we as men going to go on with reptiles as our overlords, in fact dictating foreign policy, domestic policy, which, as we have seen, seems to leave decent Americans at a severe disadvantage, while corrupt politicians and businessmen, and those who will eagerly serve the reptilians, live sumptuously off our sweat, and vilify us for objecting? If you are a man who said no to the questions I just asked, I suggest you join me in the efforts to free our world, our country, our families. As history clearly shows us, freedom is not free. It has to be fought for and bled for. But we are in a situation where we cannot even get the fight going because of disbelief the enemy actually exists. If anyone has any ideas on how we can prove the reptilian existence and introduce serious legislation to reveal and stop the dominance of reptilians over our people, please contact me or post it publicly. But remember what I said, Most people are afraid, and for good reason. As I explained, they kill or mind torture into oblivion anyone who discovers them. But if you are a parent and want a free world for your children, I ask for your support. If you are a person who is tired of this disgusting world, where the wicked flourish and the upright suffer in silence, I ask for your support. Satan and his reptilians have attacked the finances of any and all righteous people that stand up against his kingdom of wickedness and sin. But we need money to fund operations to make the people aware that we are under control of a foreign power, a non-human power. Otherwise, no one will know about it, no one will believe it, and the reptilian control of humanity will roll on as ever it has been. For you hesitating to help in this effort for justified fear, I offer for you to consider this. Think about having a world where we don't have to see anti-human agendas enacted by our own governments, with our own taxes, from our own sweat and toil as we work to provide for our families. Think about a world with cities that are safe and clean, and most people are happy, where our governments and big business are not owned and run by elitist, satanic pedophiles that are a national disgrace. Think about a world where the news media are not a bunch of cowardly, bought-out, under-control liars lying in our faces day and night about anything and everything, and everybody knows it, but no one does anything about it, for fear of losing their money and social standing. Think about a world where honest working Americans are honored as equal and viable citizens, instead of a world where honest labor is looked down on as some sign of moral lesser standing. Think about a world where the oppression of paying rent or mortgage do not exist, as everybody can afford the basics, a home and food, and there is no fighting in the streets and rampant crime and homelessness for unsafe, disgusting, and depressing environments. We now know there is a force keeping all these things in place, and we Christians have known about it since the beginning. But now is the time for all men to stand up and start taking a chance to expose the reptilian control of our world, if we want a future. You can donate anonymously by real mail or by PayPal and Patreon at my site, freeourworld.org.